pretty much connect in there, in that point, okay? Because Marxism, if you remember, is a materialistic ideology, which means there is no independence of thought. Your thoughts are just one more tool for you to get food, to get stuff for you. So there's nothing truly spiritual, impartial, ethereal somehow. It's just how you get more stuff for you. So cats develop long claws, we develop thoughts. They develop long claws to hunt, to get food, we develop thoughts. So no one else can expect any good thing out of our thoughts. Our thoughts may disguise themselves as being objective, impartial, good for everyone, just a way to disguise our interests. Okay? That's Marxism, and in reality, that is also postmodern ideology. Okay? Remember that, therefore, no ideology is free from suspicion. No ideology is free from suspicion. And we saw that when we discussed Max Weber, and we saw he tried, he gave the opposite version from Marxism. But, you know, we'll see that again when we discuss animal rights. Some of the authors, John Rawls, he tries to give also a solution through his book called A Theory of Justice. There's no easy way out of this situation. Because how do we reach some objectivity? If anything, no matter how much objective it may look, it's just a pretense of objectivity. But there's no real objectivity. Well, for some thinkers, there is no way out of it. There is simply no way out of it. Anything is truly an ideology. And we have a Marxist, neo-Marxist, and Freudian thinker called Herbert Marcuse. Herbert Marcuse, who used to be a UC Berkeley professor during the 60s, radical times. He was one of the radical leaders. And he says, you know what you call freedom of expression, that you think it's completely non-ideological, that's a principle, a tenet you need to defend, even with your own life, because that is the guarantee that things may change, that no one will ever become a tyrant or a despot, because if people are able to speak their minds, then, well, he says, that is part of an ideology too. He says, imagine a large room full of people, with everyone talking. Who listens to other people? No one. No one is listening to anyone, because they're too busy talking to each other. Who gets heard in that situation? Well, some do. The ones with the biggest loudspeakers, the ones with power. So Marcuse says it's in their interest to let you speak, because no one is going to listen to you. And you're not going to listen to anyone. Who are you going to listen to when you turn on the TV? To the guy who has the money to be in there, in a commercial, or you're going to listen to those, to the politicians, to the big ones, to the important ones. And meanwhile, you'll be happy, thinking that because you can speak, you're free. Marcuse, okay? So no ideology is free from suspicion. And the radical feminists are convinced of that. They are the only ones who have seen the light. I have to say that. They are the only ones who have seen the light. And in fact, if you are a feminist and you disagree with them, they will not participate in any meeting or in any debate where you are, where you're also participating, because there cannot be, in their opinion, two different feminist points of view. And we will see. In fact, I was going to mention this later, but I'll mention it now. Catherine McKinnon was invited to a debate, and they wanted to have the radical feminist viewpoint, and they invited another feminist that disagreed with the radical feminists, and so they invited Nadine Stronsen, who was the first African-American woman to be the president of the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. And so Catherine McKinnon said, no. If she's there, I will not be there, because there cannot be two feminist points of view. There's only one, which is the radical feminist. And so because Catherine McKinnon was so radical and so colorful and so, they withdrew the invitation from Nadine Strossen. Then Nadine Strossen got really upset later. And she wrote a book critical to a radical feminist, and we'll see that book later. Right? Now, the critique of a male constructivist society has reached really the extreme with the radical feminists. Because if everything has been created by men, and they give these interesting examples, for example, with the IQ. You know what the IQ is, right? You heard of the IQ test? It's the biggest bullshit ever invented, as you know. Because all the IQ test measures is your ability to do an IQ test. That's basically the only correlation there is. We know today that intelligence goes in many different directions, and it's very difficult to define unless you want to be really selective. You want to measure a specific type of skill. That's all the IQ test does. But anyway, for a long time, the IQ test was taken to really measure truly intelligence. And so the problem is that when it was devised, you know what the problem was? Women score higher. And that was seen as a problem. So we needed to make the necessary adjustments so as to make sure that men score higher. And then once we did, we knew we had the right IQ test. Well, we've been doing the same kind of thing all over, okay? All the time. And we've talked about objectivity, being objective as a good thing, being rational as a good thing, as a liberating thing, because if you're rational, objective, you produce philosophy, you'll reach the conclusion that all humans are equal, men and women. That's the idea. Well, the radical feminists say no. The radical feminists say rationality and objectivity are a male invention, are a male construct. That's why they are better at that. So if you argue with a radical feminist and you tell her, look, you're not being rational, she will say, right, I don't want to be rational. I don't want to be objective. That's a male game. I don't want to play by a male rule, by man's rules. Because it is thanks to those rules that men have always been on top and women have been under. You make us believe that that objectivity, the world is like it is. Well, sorry, the world isn't like that. Naturally, you've made it under the pretense of objectivity. What about those women who succeed, who become presidents and prime ministers and heads of corporations? Well, you know what? Those women are men for the radical feminists. They're men in disguise. You know who Margaret Thatcher was, or is? The former British Prime Minister. She used to be called the Iron Lady because she was so tough. And once she had this Irish Republican Army activists or terrorists imprisoned, and they were protesting because they wanted better prison conditions. And so they started a hunger strike. And they went on and on and on. And of course, the more time that it elapsed, the worse the situation became. And it was in the media, there was lots of tensions, and the doctors were saying, well, if these guys stay on hunger strike for another 2 days, they're going to die. And so there was a lot of pressure on Margaret Thatcher. And in the end, they died. And then I remember seeing this headline on a right-wing newspaper: Margaret Thatcher is a real man. She didn't give up. Yes, like a man. Okay, but the radical feminists would agree on that completely. Okay. Let me read now from a feminist who is not a radical feminist and who is critical to the radical feminists' position on their critique of reason and objectivity. This is Martha Nussbaum, And this is an article she wrote